Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios. You're watching bass design, and in this particular bass design video I'm just going to be talking a little bit about resampling. Resampling is a really powerful technique, and it's probably one of the techniques that creates the most interesting sounds. So, I've done a lot of resampling with Harmor in this particular one, as you can see. And let's look. Yeah, everything is recording. Yes, okay. So I made some interesting stuff. Let me turn off these effects. I started with a massive patch, and that patch sounds like this. It's a really simple patch, as you can see. It's only one oscillator. It's the iron oscillator set to band minus, with just some simple stuff going on. There's not really that much going on, to be quite honest. And I've got some ring modulation on oscillator 1. I am not using oscillator 1, by the way. So I can turn the ring modulation off. I have some position modulation on oscillator 2. It's giving it some more of a different kind of character. I've got a scream filter, which is just adding some more grit. And I've got a double notch, which adding some more movement. It's really subtle, by the way, but that is what works. A lot of tiny subtle things together create something really interesting. And then I've got a classic tube, a phaser, and an EQ. On the voicing tab we're having two voices, pitch cutoff with just a tiny little bit. Wavetable position is about a quarter to the left, a quarter from the left, I need to say. And I have the pen position, well, just to the left of the mono kind of thing. I have a sine shaper, and that's it. I restarted via gate, and I dragged the phases of oscillator 2 and the modulation oscillator to somewhat of a different position, and that creates this patch. It's a really simple patch, a really basic patch, but that is what I need because I'm gonna resample this. I then threw that into Harmor. As you can see, I can open up Harmor and see what I've done. I think I just So what did I do in Harmor? I have some harmonic protection. I think that harmonic protection it helps to maintain the actual tone of the particular sound. And you can see right on these gaps right here, we're getting something that sounds like a saw wave. I think that's because of the distortion. Oh, there's no distortion. Interesting. Where is that coming from? I don't have a clue, to be quite honest. Where is it coming from? Something in this patch is giving me some kind of a, well, yeah, what is it? It sounds like a saw wave, but I don't have a clue how I got that. I changed the global EQ, that's one thing I can say, as you can see. And something is creating that weird kind of, well, sort of like a saw wave in there. I think it's because in the main sound, even though it looks like there's nothing going on in that particular part, I think there is some stuff going on. Maybe it's because of the scaling thing right here. It's not that either. Well, to be quite honest, I have no clue why that saw wave appears in these gaps, but I think it's pretty interesting and it works, you know, it sounds good. It might be coming from the oscillator. Yeah, it's coming from this particular part, and I think when something in this one is creating it. Yeah, it's the actual oscillator right here that is creating the saw wave on these gaps, and it actually sounds pretty cool. So I haven't done really that much to the effects section. What I actually only did is I added 4 voices on the unison tab, set it to the blurred mode, and I played around a little bit with these 3 sliders to get well, a lot more stereo width in this particular patch. I mean, we went from this, which is really narrow in the stereo wideness, and by detuning this and adding some more voices in Harmor, it becomes so much more powerful and a lot more, well, in your face and heavy, and you know, and it's really simple actually. So that's one way to really fatten up your bass sounds. Then we go into the next Harmor, and on this one, there's a little bit more going on. Let's see. Let me turn all these off. And let's bring up Harmor itself. So I've done some more stuff in here. Let's see. We've got the phaser turned on in this particular one, as you can see. And I have automated the phaser mix with the envelope. So at the start of the sound, we're getting almost a fully phased kind of sound. And it drops back down so we don't have any of the phaser. As you can hear, that's what it's doing. And something is also connected to the XY thing right here. And I need to look and see what it is. Okay, it's the filter frequency of that band, what is it, band reject kind of thing. Again, I added quite some unison too. I added 8 voices of the unison, and I played around a little bit with the pen and the phase. I don't have any pitch thickness on this particular one. I don't really think that sounded really well. I can add it if I want. But it's introducing a lot of phase cancellation, because there's already a lot of pitch detuning going on between the voices on the actual sound. And in the original patch there was already a little bit of detuning. Then in the first Harmor resample, I added some more detuning. And if I would add even more detuning in this one, it starts to cancel itself out, and that's not what I want. So I did that. I also added a little bit of the prism. It's not doing that much, but it just adds a little bit of a different kind of thing. And in the image section, it's not really doing that much. It's basically just playing through the sample. On the effects section, well, I haven't done anything again on the effects section, so that's pretty similar. What I did is I actually just did I added that band reject, band stop with a little bit of resonance, and I'm automating that filter frequency right here. And that's what creates this patch. Then I have the next Harmor resample. Let's listen to this. Okay, that's a really interesting one. What I did is I exported the last resample and I threw that into Harmor again. And this time I took the speed down a lot. I changed the actual starting position in the sample. And I think I am image time offset envelope. Yeah. You can see I have this envelope and that's connected to the image time offset, so that's this button. And every time a note is triggered, you can see we go from here to here, and this is the middle line. So right on this setting right here, the time knob won't move at all, and at this setting it's actually going to move a little bit back. So at the start of each sound, the time setting goes from a little bit further to the left, and it basically just brings it up a little bit. I can show you that, and you really need to look at these lines that are moving every time I trigger a note. Let's see. So as soon as it hits this particular point, the time knob starts to move backwards. And that is because I'm using the speed, and the speed is set to, let's see, about half, about 0.5. So what that means, at 1 it would be exactly stationary. So when I set this to 1, this time knob won't change at all. If I set it to 0.5, that's actually 50%, so it's going backwards. If I would set it to 150, or to 1.5, then it's gonna move forward. So that's just something you need to think about. I'm now doing this, bringing it back. This layer this is a sound I would most likely use to just add some or create some interesting sound effects. Another cool thing about it is when I change the position in this sample, the start position, I'm gonna get a totally different sound. Listen, I can, for instance, click here. And this is just to create sound effects. I could export this to a sample, and then I can just chop out everything I need, and add some EQing and really just taking out all the frequencies that I don't need, because this is quite harsh. It's quite loud in the high frequencies, so I might low pass this and just play around with it to make it work. Then I have my another Harmor. And this one is a little bit different. Look, you can see the notes are a little bit more complex than the other one. What I'm doing in this one, let me play this for you. This is actually the same sample as I used in the previous layer. It is actually the sample that's coming from this particular one. So that one with the effects on there. So it's that sample thrown into Harmor, and as you can see, and I'm using that same technique. I'm adding a lot of voices, 9 to be quite honest, and I'm just playing around a little bit with these sliders again, and that really helps to, well, give it some more wideness, to make it a lot thicker. I also added that same band reject again, and I think the frequency is again modulated. Yeah, it's modulated by an envelope. So that is modulating the frequency on the band reject. And what I did on the effects tab, I added the rubber filter, or I added the rubber distortion. Without it, we get that, and you can actually hear that sound we had previously. With that, it just sounds so much better. I added a little bit of chorus, just to make it a little bit wider in terms of the stereo spectrum. And I added some compression on the heating mode. Sounds really, really interesting. On here I have Sugar Bytes Wow filter set to the vowel comb preset. Doing that. That's just what it's doing. And then I have my camel fat, just with a little bit of tube and quite some exciter. I have a little bit of compression on here as well, just to fatten it up. And I think we already, well, get something quite interesting. I mean, from this, we went to this. It sounds pretty neuro-ish, I guess. Then I moved into this one. And from here on, it's basically just the same kind of thing as what I did with this one. But I'm changing the start position inside Harmor image resampling. So, by doing that, you can create totally different sounds. In this one, the start position is... In this one, the start position is right here. And in the next one, I've dropped that start position to a different place, I guess. Yeah, it's just at the center position, or it's just at the start of this sample, but it's moving backwards first, I think. Let's see. Image time offset. Yeah. I'm using the LFO on the image time offset, so that's the time knob right here, and that controls where in the sample we're starting or where in the sample we are playing. You know, if I turn this up, you can see I'm doing that. So I'm resetting that, and on here I have connected the LFO to it, and I've drawn in a little bit of an envelope to shape that LFO. So what is happening is this line is the center position, is the start position of our time knob, and at the start it's going down a little bit, and then it's going up, and then it's going down again. So what is happening is the time knob is gonna move backwards, but because it's at the start position in this sample, it's gonna play something that's right here at the end, because it's gonna go backwards, so it's gonna end up here. And then it's gonna move back again to here, play some of this, and then it's gonna move back again, I guess. Look at it. So that's a really interesting way how you can create interesting stuff. I've added a different distortion. I've added the lock distortion. Sounds a little bit different than the rubber. You know, it's just what you prefer, I guess. Again, I added that chorus and the same compression. So what I really like about Harmor is this, sort of like the visualization that you get at the right side of the screen. I mean, look at the bottom part. I mean, that's really interesting. That's the sub. I don't know what the sub is doing, but it looks like it's actually spinning and then expanding or something like that. But, you know, it sounds good, so that's all that matters. It doesn't really matter how it looks on this particular graph right here. All that matters is how it sounds. So then I have the next Harmor resampling, which is the same thing again, but I made another different start position. And I do use a different sample for this. And again, I'm doing the same thing. On this one, the speed is set to 0, so it's not moving at all. But because I'm controlling that time knob with the LFO, and just with a really small amount, as you can see, a really small amount, it's starting to move that knob. And that's why you get the sort of like the movement in here. Without that time knob, without the LFO connected to the time knob, this would just be a stationary sound and it won't have any movement in there. So that's something to think about. There's not really that much different. The distortion is exactly the same compression, same chorus, and even the same band reject. It's just the starting position that is changed. I've done that a couple of more times with some different samples as well, and that takes us to the next Harmor resample, which is this one. And as you can see, I took a different sample and I changed the time, the speed, and the chorus speed as well. And let's see, added some unison, band reject again, lock distortion, a little bit of chorus, compression, just the same as all the other ones. And this one sounds like this. So that one sounds really interesting. I definitely like that. It's a really neuro-ish kind of bass sound. And that movement is really creating the sort of like the characteristics of the sound. I think you quite understand now how to create different kind of stuff and how to use this. I mean, what you can do with Harmor. And I do have some more, and I want to show you because we're already quite far into this. I took some really different samples. This is a sample of a bass line that's using a lot of band bass kind of movement. So there's not really that much going on in the bass line itself. But when we throw this into Harmor, and I really, you know, just spent quite some time, add some unison, really play around with that pitch cutoff on the Hertz setting, which is really cool setting, by the way. And I have the band reject on there. I have lock distortion, chorus, and compression. Those haven't changed at all. And what that does, I also played around a little bit with the formants in here, and the speed knobs and the time knobs as well. So now we get so that sounds really interesting. And I've done that again on this one. Let's see what I came up with. It's the same sample, I guess a different starting position and different time and speed settings, which creates that. I haven't done too much to this section. Yeah, it's just a little bit more of a fatter kind of version. Then I have this one. This is another sample. It's a different sample, different settings. It's actually a setting with a really high speed. So it's gonna be moving to the, I guess, to the right side. I can look around and see what I've done to this. No, I think it's gonna move backwards because the LFO is moving to the downward position. So I think we're gonna get some interesting stuff with this. Let's listen. That last part really sounds interesting. This one. And you know, it's really it sounds amazing. Then the last one, it's actually the same thing again. Oh, it's the same sample, probably the same unison settings, but just a different starting position and different speeds to create this. So there you have it. That's just a little bit of a look into how I would take on resampling with Harmor, because it just gives you a lot of different techniques and a lot of different uses. What you can do, you can make a bass line and have that bass line, well, be playing throughout the main part of your track and really using that bass sound as your main sound, but then you might need some variations on that particular bass sound, but with the same sort of tonality, the same characteristics in the sound itself. What I would then do is just export the main bass sound in a loop and load that into Harmor, play around a little bit with these time settings and speeds and whatnot, and then you can sort of like create totally different bass sounds, but they still will have the same sort of harmonics in there, the same sort of tonality or characteristics in the sound that the original sample had, and because of that, it's most likely gonna work pretty well with the other bass patch, with your main bass patch. So that's just a little bit of a thing you can think about when creating bass sounds, and when you need a little bit of a different kind of thing. I had some drums in here. I haven't really used them in this particular video, but I don't know how this is gonna work with the other stuff. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I can play around with this. So you can see, so you can see that with resampling you can make a really simple, mediocre kind of patch into a really interesting kind of thing. So that was it for this video. It was a little bit of a different kind of video, but I hope you like it. So if you want to know some more about my music, my tutorials, or you want to have some downloads for Ableton Live, then go to my website, which is www.artfx-studios.com. On there, there's a lot of great stuff, and there's also a forum about music production where you can talk with a lot of different producers and with me directly. So if you want to have some tips or some tricks on your particular music, then post your music in the forum and start a discussion, and I will definitely try to answer you. Yeah, that's it. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you back soon. Peace.